Miracle Boy Boxing, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, the one and only Hosting Cruz, bringing you another exciting edition of boxing. Don't forget to hit and to like, subscribe to my channel. It's always greatly appreciated. Stay tuned. Miracle Boy Boxing, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Hosting Cruz, and guys, man, this is and was one hard pill to swallow. When I found it out, we found it out that the great Big George Forman, the legendary Big George Forman, the one and only Big George Forman, the Olympic gold medalist from 1968, the oldest heavyweight champion of the world, two-time heavyweight champion of the world, 77 wins, 68 knockouts, 5 losses, Hall of Famer, legend of the sport, one of the greatest fighters of all time, one of the greatest heavyweight punchers of all time, one of the greatest to ever put on a pair of gloves, period. And a great man, such a great man, a great fighter, a great man, great husband, a great father to his, 11, 10 kids? Got a lot of kids. Oh man, such a huge loss to the sport of boxing and just to everything. Fans, friends, family. When I heard about the news, I was on Instagram and I saw this post saying George Foreman passes away. And I'm like, no way. Because Google didn't have it up yet. That's the first place I go to when I hear about public figures and celebrities and stuff passing away. I go to Google. It wasn't on Google yet. So when I went in the comments section, people were saying fake. I even commented fake because no one, it was unbelievable, you know. But then what? A little after that, more posts started to come up about George Foreman's passing. Even the publisher of the posts said his family announced it. So he got it from somewhere. I guess it was already on George's Instagram. And then it sunk in. Like, damn, it's real. TMZ posted it up. Then Google started to post it up. ESPN, The Ring, everyone. It got real, man. It got real. And then it sunk in, man. Like, no, it can't be. Someone as fans loved so much and as a fighter has given us so many memories over the years. Now, during his career, I wasn't born. I'm 29. Even when he retired in 97, after his last fight to Shannon Cannon Briggs, I was like 3-4 years old. 3 years old. But as a fan of boxing, I looked at all George Foreman's fights. From when he turned pro in 1969, because he won Olympic gold in 1968, till all the way to 1997, last fight against Shannon Cannon Briggs. I saw his prime, and I saw when he came back, Big George Forman, like fat, out of his prime, where no one took his second run serious until he changed the laughs of everyone to, okay, we're taking you serious now, George, again. So from winning an Olympic gold medal in 1968 and just knocking out a lot of opponents after opponents, then he took on Joe Frazier, sparked Joe Frazier out in 2 rounds. A man that gave Muhammad Ali hell in the ring 3 times. In a fight, in one of the fights where Muhammad Ali said, this fight was close, was the closest thing to dying And George Foreman took Frazier and knocked him out in 2 rounds. And then in a rematch, he knocked him out in 5. So Joe Frazier lasted a little longer, but the results were the same. Ken Norton, brutal puncher, excellent fighter. George Foreman stopped him early as well. And Ken Norton gave Muhammad Ali hell in the ring. I think they fought 3 times as well. Ron Lyle, George Foreman versus Ron Lyle, one of the greatest heavyweight fights of all time. Both fighters traded multiple knockdowns, brutal exchanges, and until George Foreman was able to win the fight by stoppage. Then came the Rumble in the Jungle, the famous Rumble in the Jungle in Zaire, where Muhammad Ali introduced the boxing world to the rope-a-dope. That eventually got George Foreman out of there with a counter right hand left hook. Down goes a fatigued George Foreman. Everyone thought that George Foreman would have destroyed Ali. Everyone was afraid of Ali, afraid for Ali in that fight, and Ali proved everyone wrong. A couple more fights after that, George Foreman took a hiatus, 10 years, became a full-time preacher, turned his life into Christ. And for 10 years, he devoted his life to Jesus, God, church. He was a full-time preacher for 10 years. 10 years later, he could no longer, for some reason, afford to pay his bills when it comes to the church. So he only had one solution to this problem. Prior to being in church and devoting his life to church, he was a fighter. Now, be in mind, George Foreman didn't fight 10 years. At this time, he was 38. Still in his 30s, but 38. That's for a fighter that's out of his prime, that's old. Even though he was already a heavyweight champion and had a career, but he was 38 and he ain't fighting 10 years. That's a long time out of the ring. Nothing to do with boxing for 10 years. He didn't lace up not one glove. He didn't hit not one heavy bag. He didn't run. Nothing. Gained a lot of weight. Became a family man. A preacher. Totally different man. The George Foreman, the fighter, was no longer a priority until that situation with the bills came about. And he said, you know what? He told his wife, I got to box. I gotta bring the fighter back, George Foreman. And so the return began. In 1987, George Foreman came back to the sport of boxing. Fat, 38 years old, haven't fought in 10 years, and he was racking up win after win after win against low-level opposition, because remember, he ain't fighting 10 years, so he's going to be fighting fighters with rules and records, starting over, basically, knocking almost everyone out. And eventually, he got a big crack at the world title against Evander Holyfield. We all know how that went, but George Foreman lost the fight, but it was a competitive fight, and that opened a lot of eyebrows. That lifted a lot of eyebrows and opened a lot of eyes. Because at 41 in that fight, this is how long. George came back at 38 years old, and it took him a couple years to really be taken serious and get a serious fight. So here comes George versus Holyfield. Holyfield won by unanimous decision, but George Foreman, being 41, gave a really good account of himself, was competitive, wasn't outclassed, and lifted a lot of eyebrows, like I said. Few more fights after that, and then the fight happened in 91. So 92, 93, a couple more. George Foreman lost to Tommy Morrison. Competitive fight. And then came the opportunity at 45 years old, now against Michael Moore for the heavyweight title. The same title he lost to Muhammad Ali 20 years prior. And even George Foreman wore the same trunks he fought against Muhammad Ali. At 45 years old, no one gave George any chance to win this fight. But George, like a lot of boxers with punching power, there's always a puncher's chance. And the puncher's chance came when he landed perfectly 1-2 right on Moore's chin. Moore went down. Referee Joel Cortez, the famed Joel Cortez, counted Michael Moore out because Michael Moore could not make the 10 count, and George Foreman, at 45 years old in Las Vegas, 1994, November, became the oldest heavyweight champion in the history of the sport, something that had never been done before. An unbelievable feat, and George Foreman went on his knees, went in the corner, started to pray, thanking God, and just enjoying the spectacular moment. The fans started going crazy. And yeah, George Foreman was able to defend the heavyweight title a few times before losing to Shannon the Cannon Briggs in his last fight in 1997. He lost that fight by majority decision at 48 years old. And in my opinion, I thought George won the fight against Shannon the Cannon Briggs at 48 years old. George defending a heavyweight title and competing at the elite level. Shannon the Cannon Briggs, I thought George won that fight. It was what it was. George lost. He never came back. And that was it for his boxing career. In 1997, he came back to HBO to be a commentator, I think, for a couple of years. Did a great job in 2001, 2002. And there was an article where we're reading of George was coming back in his 50s. True fact. George was coming back in his 50s. He said, and I quote, "If I did it in my 40s, I can do it in my 50s." And nothing was stopping him. He said he was in shape. He's been running. He'd been hitting the bags and stuff. So at 55, I think at 55 he was at the time, he said he wanted to come back. And honestly, if that was today, I would be interested. I would watch George Foreman in his 50s fight. Because like he said, if he did it in his 40s, he can do it in his 50s. And George, I won't doubt George, man. In his 50s, still strong, still big, still heavy when it comes to his punching power. The last thing that goes is your power. But only one thing stopped George from not doing that. And that's his wife, which is understandable. His wife pulled him to the side. He said, "George, is that how you want to be remembered? You need to be remembered as a fighter that knows he can do it. Not going in there, getting beat up, and having the realization that you can't do it. You want to leave the sport knowing that you can still do it." So his wife talked to him, told him no, in other words, and George decided to never come back. So a great career, a legendary career. What a man, what a life he's had. He will definitely be missed. I'll be honest with you guys. This is one of the hardest passings that I've ever witnessed in boxing. Like, Muhammad Ali was sad and stuff, but George Foreman, being the nice person that he was, humble, good heart, great fighter. It was definitely sad to find out that happened. At 76, he passed away due to, he was up there in age, so nature took its course. But it was sad. I was on my bed when I was reading the news, and my eyes started to water up. Like, honestly, it was really sad. Even right now, I watch George Foreman clips of him fighting, and I will feel saddened. I will be sad about it. It's a tough one. Like I said in the beginning of this video, it was a tough, hard pill to swallow, and at least we can continue the memories with George by watching his fights and just enjoying the memories, man. The great fights, the great moments. He's etched. His legacy will forever be etched in boxing. Um, yeah, the great George Foreman. You will be missed. One of the greatest fighters of all time. Um, you'll definitely be missed. Miracle Boy Boxing, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Jose Cruz. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. It is always a pleasure to talk to you guys about boxing. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.